Hello, Illini Nation. It is halftime of Illinois and Oakland, and it's a little bit tighter than what we're used to from the early onset of the season, but we are getting absolutely close to competition time in college basketball. So the talent that you're going to be facing is going to get harder and harder as the season comes, and this is a good pretest for the Alabama game. So, Sonny, what are your initial thoughts of this first half?
As much fun as this team can be to watch, you can sometimes you can see how equally frustrating they can be when they just at one point, just full disclosure, I had 42 and a half for the team points for the first half. Halfway through, they're at like 24 points. I'm like, oh, this they're going to coast. They go 5 minutes without a basket, just turnover after turnover. It's one of those things where the team is so young, so I know it's to be expected. Like this is going to be a part of the process all season long. This is kind of why I've said that, I think the out of conference schedule is going to be pretty tough on this team because they're all figuring out the speed and pace of college basketball, and especially a team that's built on shooting. If a couple of those there's a couple of minute stretch where those shots aren't falling in, and there's a couple turnovers here and there. This is just what we're going to have to live with over the next month and a half at least.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the game and it feels like these players don't necessarily know where the other pieces are going to be on the court together at times. Like there were some alley oops that were missed. There was some 3-point shots that were missed that could have swayed the game a little bit more in Illinois' favor. And there were some passes that were just a little bit off timed because they don't know each other's athleticism yet in competition mode. So I think it's a lot about the gelling period of this team, but I mean, I like what I'm seeing from Ben Hummerkaus and Thomas Lavavisic starting out. I would want to see a little bit more Dre Gibbs, I feel like. I think he's a guy that needs to play a little bit more in the second half. But you're facing a Oakland team with Greg Campy, a really veteran coach out there in college basketball. He knows how to defend against some of these athletic teams as well. I mean, look at what happened to Kentucky last year in the NCAA tournament. I know it's a very new Oakland team compared to that Kentucky team, but this is what you get whenever it's a Greg Campy coach team. It's not going to be a cakewalk like the other two games were.
Yeah, Oakland, they may not have the talent that they've had in the last couple of years, but they're just so extremely well coached. And I guess the only way to describe their defense, it's annoying. It's not traditional. So sometimes it does take guys, time to adjust and get used to what exactly they're playing up against. But regardless, I hate to say it, this is not one of those games where I'm really worried at all, maybe yet. Obviously, if it stays this close with 5 minutes left in the game, I might start sweating a little bit. But I just think this was a pretty bad first half for the Illini. And even in the bad first half, they scored 36 points or something. Yeah, 36 points. Go over the time. Avicic, 10 points, 2 rebounds. Obviously, he's just got a huge mismatch on the guy
Yep.
who's guarding him with 6'6". So he looks kind of like a junior high player who just had his growth spurt early. So he's just grabbing rebounds over the other guys and on the same jump, essentially throwing it right back in. But overall, again, nothing that I'm worried about. I still want to see more from Kylan, and I talked about that on my Locked On episode. Not that I have a level of concern for him, but I think if he hadn't been a former Champaign 4/5 star, I don't think there'd be much buzz about Kylan's performance this year. He's doing what you can ask a good, solid role player to do. He's setting up the offense. He's playing good defense. He's making pretty decent decisions. But Kylan was the first big guy to commit to us this offseason. And so I feel like with that came expectations, and not necessarily from everybody, but some from the fans. Brad Underwood had to answer some questions in regards to Kylan. And I really was hoping that what I called that Kylan could have a good box score game. Because I think otherwise, if he doesn't, then for the next week until that Alabama game starts, we're going to kind of be hearing the same sort of whispers, like, should DGL be starting? What's wrong with Kylan? Is Kylan a bust? Stuff like that. I'm just not ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, It's like whenever the NFL, like there's a star player out in free agency, it's like there's a reason why that team didn't lock him up to get a re-signing. And there was a reason why Kylan Boswell is not in Arizona anymore. And sometimes it takes the new team to get some games under the belt and be like, oh, this is why Kylan Boswell left Arizona. I mean, you look at the tail end of that Arizona career where there was a lot of turnovers, where there was a lot of just me shots instead of we shots. And I feel like Kylan is kind of getting back into those bad habits a little bit. But am I worried? No, but maybe the expectations need to just dwindle down a little bit. And maybe that's an opportunity for Dre Gibbs as well, because he's been doing really well this early part of this season. Obviously, today, only a few points in there, but I think the second half, if he's out there, I think he can perform and again be that microwave score for the Illini.
What's your worry scale on? And not, I mean, Kasparis, of course, is still playing fantastic, but still just two shots in the first half. He had four in the first game, three in the second game, two in this first half. Is there a part of you who that just kind of wants to see Kasparis be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to just scoring?
I think he is completely fine right now with not taking the game over with his shooting ability and his driving ability because it's working with his passes to Tomislav, with his awesome like over the shoulder passes to like Ben Hummerkaus. I mean, it's working for the Illini, but at some point you're going to need to see the Caspers that you saw in the highlight reels from Europe to take over a game. If Will Riley is off of the bench, you're going to need to see Caspers be a little bit more aggressive in terms of what he's doing on the basketball court. So, am I worried? No. Am I just getting antsy of seeing the Caspers that we saw in Europe? Absolutely. But I don't know if it's going to impact Illinois winning games or not because you still have five players in like double digits the first two games, and I'm expecting three in this game more than likely with Hummer, Kaus, and Avicic and Will Riley at least. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Kasparis won't take like four 3-pointers in a row and make them, and then he's at 12 points right away in that second half. So this team can just turn on a dime with what they do offensively.
Yeah, I mean he's been impressive since he's come over. Even this game, he's playing fine. It's just one of like I think his killer instinct when it comes to scoring is the one thing I was kind of really looking forward to having translate to college basketball. That was one of my favorite traits about him. Once I found out he was coming to Champaign, I tried to watch every single game of his I could out in Europe, and he looked like he had that that killer instinct, a guy just coming in to put his foot on your throat type of thing. And right now he just seems to be a fantastic table setter, but only a table setter, a guy who's looking to pass 4 out of 5 times. And maybe that's okay early in the season, against these sort of teams, but we're going to need Kasparis playing his best game next week against Alabama. We're going to be Will Riley. He's showing no sign of hesitancy or being shy. He's launching them, and we're going to need a big Will Riley game in order to beat Alabama as well. But with Kasparis, it's just one of those where we're going to need him to score 15 to 20 points against Alabama next week, and that's going to be against a much tougher team, a much tougher defense, everything. And so I just wish, I know he's scored double figures both games, but again, off of 3 and 4 shots, I would love to see Kasparis have a 22-point, 10-shot, 11-shot game because we know he's going to get his points via free throws, which I sincerely appreciate. But I just want to see him be that killer. That's the only thing I'm missing out on from that Kasparis scouting report.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that will come with time. It's just I think he doesn't feel comfortable being that leader as the shot leader in the box score right now because he has seen success, and I think you look at like Luka Doncic. Like I hate that comparison for Kasparis; it's not fair to him. But there are some games where Luka doesn't really shoot the ball much because he's doing so well setting his teammates up, and he's just fine with it. But against Alabama, and we'll have to get through the second half against Oakland when we'll have an episode dedicated to that Alabama game. But I just truly feel like he is content, and I think that's the European model of basketball, where it's like, if you're winning, don't change what you're doing, kind of thing. But the American style, it's like, no, you got to become aggressive or you'll never be aggressive, kind of thing. So I think it's a battle of two styles, that between Brad Underwood and the European style, that Caspers has to have the angel and the devil on the shoulder, kind of thing, with him. But a guy that I want to talk about is Trey White a little bit. He has how many? He has 5 points, correct, so far, or
He
did he get
has 5
seven?
points on 2 of 3
Yeah.
shooting, and 2 rebounds and 3 assists. So nice. Well, 3 turnovers, but I think everyone who's played any sort of substantial minutes tonight has multiple turnovers.
Yeah, I like his aggressiveness. I think it can expand a little bit, as well. Like, that's the guy that I was expecting a little bit more aggression from, just because of his experience at the Power Five level in the past, and I think he is a guy that, if Illinois is going to be successful against the likes of Alabama and Arkansas and Duke and the like of this non-conference and Big Ten play, he's got to be more aggressive, because he's a guy I predicted to be the leader in scoring this year. And Will Riley might take that claim, or Thomas Loft, depending on the matchup, especially now that Purdue is without a 7 foot guy. I think that Trey White has that potential, and I want to see that a little bit more offensively.
Let's get to some of the comments. By the way, please feel free to leave some feedback and comments in the chat. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Austin and I try to go do a halftime show every game that we can and we're capable. We're going to try to do at least 1 or 2 episodes a week. So definitely subscribe if you're looking for Illini content. Joe Groves, thanks for stopping by. Says, not an impressive first half. We came out with lots of energy, but on the first player swaps, we lost it. Need to stop turning the ball over. Yeah, agreed. Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. Again, I think it just comes with the territory of having such a young team, and a team that really, at this point, has only played 3 games together against opponents, two and a half, I guess. If you include Ole Miss exhibition, so it's just going to take some getting used to. Does that make me feel any more optimistic for next week's game against Alabama? Certainly not. But again, for me, it's all about the Big Ten season and just getting acclimated and getting used to each other and where each other, where they're going to be on the spot on the basketball floor, when they're ready to make a pass.
Yeah, I mean, 6 turnovers by your more aggressive players, just not aggressive, but more ball dominant players, in Casparis and Trey White. So it's just about the flow of this offense, figuring each other out, is the true key to this. And with the way Brad Underwood has dealt with lineup combinations this year, there's been a lot of them. So the gelling hasn't been able to come to fruition, but each guy deserves a chance to make an impact on this team, because nobody's locked themselves into a firm rotational spot outside of maybe Thomas Loff and Ben Hummerkaus. I mean, those are the two guys that you can, like, truly believe. Like, Will Riley, of course, has the scoring ability, but there are some. There are a lot of guys that have more than an ample evidence that they should be playing a lot of minutes in this season, and I think that'll straighten itself out as the season goes along.
Brad says the team doesn't look great. Brad, honestly, the team might not be great. Depending on what your definition of great is, this could just be a good team. This could be a very good team. But right now, if you ask me, am I 100% positive that this is a great team? No, not necessarily. But I'm also not going to judge this team in their third basketball game of the season, just because of what we mentioned before. It's just got a lot of growing to do and a lot more minutes on the court to play together.
I mean, you don't eat a Portillo's chocolate cake with it only being in the oven for 2 minutes. The ingredients have to form together, and that's kind of where this Illini team is at. A Portillo's chocolate cake is obviously great, and this Illini team isn't there yet. It's a team that has to figure itself out, and the pressure will get to them at some point. I get that it's not going to be a perfect team, but right now they just got to figure things out on who they are and who their teammates are in this, and that's the challenge of Brad Underwood and Jeff Alexander and Tyler Underwood.
We'll wrap this up real quick with Kirkland's comment. Riley appears to be the Illini's most aggressive scorer, which is crazy from an 18-year-old. Thoughts on his early spark? I think anybody who knows Will Riley isn't all that surprised. If you listen to what his coaches were saying, he's not shy at all. He genuinely thinks that he's the best basketball player on the court, even now at the college basketball level. So I think that first game was kind of his coming out party. Now, again, that doesn't mean he's not going to have some stinkers along the way. But as you mentioned earlier, I would not be surprised if he ultimately ends up being our leading scorer.
Yep, 36th in scoring in the country already in his young Illini basketball career. But it looks like the second half has gotten started. So we will leave you there. Illinois up 36-32 at the half. So thank you, Sonny. And we will be back with more Illini content in the next few days. Thank you, guys. ILL.
I and I.